This is Carolina Business Review. Major support provided by High Point University, the premier life skills university focused on preparing students for the world as it is going to be. Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina, an independent licensee of the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association. Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
We are finding our footing now and building some serious momentum around this Carolina beach season. What can seem like an endless smiling summer of travel, sun, sand, water, sports, exotic trips, and of course, all of the social media posts of the aforementioned. Welcome back. Thanks for supporting Carolina Business Review. I am Chris William, and as this feel-good summer season unfolds, business still rolls on, and between whatever planned trip you have and having to work to support that trip, the normal course of business does pound along, and of course we will talk about it. And we will start with our expected expert panelists, and later on what is normally thought of is the chief executive officer of sorts for a state. Joining this dialogue later is the newly elected North Carolina State Treasurer, Brad Briner. Stay with us.
Major funding also by Foundation for the Carolinas, a catalyst for philanthropy and driver of civic engagement, helping individuals, nonprofits, and companies bring their charitable visions to life. Truliant Federal Credit Union, proudly serving the Carolinas since 1952 by focusing on what truly matters, our members' financial success. Welcome to Brighter Banking. And Martin Marietta, a leading provider of natural resource-based building materials, providing the foundation on which our communities improve and grow. On this edition of Carolina Business Review, Ben Kinney from Business North Carolina, Alan Smith of OneSpartanburg, Inc., and special guest, Brad Briner, North Carolina State Treasurer.
Hello, happy summer, gentlemen. Good to have you here. Nice to see you.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Ben, I have to ask you this, and this is going to sound kind of just off the cuff, but what is the deal with the Savannah Bananas and the success that they've had? I mean, that's pretty amazing when you look at the numbers they're posting. And this is for lack of a better way, just AAA ball team out of Savannah. Guy lives in Gastonia that owns it, and they put 150,000 people, Bank of America Stadium, 2 nights in June. How do you describe that?
Hey, firsthand witness on that. Our office is very close to uptown Charlotte, and that Friday, the first Friday that they were there, 12 o'clock, you would have thought that it was a Metallica concert or something like that, because it was packed. Traffic was, gridlocked right around the stadium, and unbeknownst to me, I totally forgot about it and ran right into it, so got a firsthand thing. But I think it's the entertainment value, Chris. I think it's basically, baseball, there's always going to be a certain audience for baseball that's going to love it and love of the game, right? Uh-huh. But there's other folks that, just they don't have the patience for it. The Americans are getting just more impatient and patient. And I think that this gentleman who is from Gastonia basically kind of tapped into the entertainment value of it. And having, audience participation, right? Full audience participation.
Oh, yeah, all in.
And just different little shows within shows to create an incredible entertainment package. And Bank of America Stadium was packed.
The Panthers don't do that.
Right.
Major league teams don't do that. They
Yeah.
did this down in Clemson, didn't they?
They did, and make no mistake about it. minor league baseball is really enjoying its heyday right now. In fact, we just opened a $71 million minor league baseball stadium in downtown Spartanburg. Hub City Spartanburgers, Fifth Third Park, really leading the nation in merchandise. Spartanburgers has caught on, so it's big business, tremendous economic impact for our area.
In general, let's switch a little bit to economic impact, economic development. Just when you think North Carolina, let's start with North Carolina, Ben. I'm pointing to you because you kind of represent the old Tar Heel, or the North State, Old North State. to some degree. But in Business North Carolina magazine, it was about 2 or 3 or maybe a month ago now, biggest economic development ever, $10 billion Amazon, and then right on the heels of it, there's a $14.5 billion. Why are these dominoes keep falling in such big, with these big projects? What's going on?
Yeah, it's interesting. Our July issue's coming out, and it features the top economic projects of last year. And as the editors, we were all getting together talking about, did we have it? God, the year before was just huge. Are we going to be able to top it? We looked at it. Yeah. Yes.
2 or 3x, I would guess.
Yeah, exactly. And so this year, with you were talking about Amazon, which was $10 billion. The important thing about that is it's going into an area that really needs it. Richmond County and Rockingham County. Most people know it in our major metro areas. If you're in Charlotte, you drive through it on 74 on the way to the beach, right? But it's a rural area. $10 billion investment from a company like Yahoo means a lot. It's 500 jobs. It's not that much, but to have rural North Carolina and rural areas in both states in the game in terms of these announcements is a game changer. It used to be major metro areas, Charlotte, Apple in the RTP. To have that in this area is great. And then, of course, we're talking about Jet Zero, 14,500 workers announced. That's the biggest announcement in North Carolina history. Who would have thought, right? And that also goes to the triad, and that area is becoming a little bit more of a player. It has become more of a player, especially in terms of aerospace. Think about the companies that are at that airport now out there.
And this is PTI. This is not a major airport.
No, they're becoming a major airport in the sense of bringing business in there, a major economic developer. That's probably the most, PTI is the major economic developer in Guilford County.
Yeah, and South Carolina, not to be outdone, but did, at least in this last announcement, with the Scout announcement down in Richland County, right in the center of the state, probably needs a shot in the arm more than the upstate Allen, sorry to say that, but they probably need a little bit of wind at their backs. But that's not a small deal either, and that was the biggest in the state history.
Not at all. And then just a few months ago in Spartanburg County, we announced the second largest investment ever in South Carolina. It was a $2.8 billion Northmark strategy announcement. So again, I think both states are incredibly positioned. I think the Port of Charleston is a major asset for us. The inland port in Spartanburg County is really a player as well. So good times to be in the Carolinas.
So let me bring all of this into a question that says, because of that, and it's not meant to be negative, but are the Carolinas at risk to losing that affordability matrix that they've had? All of a sudden, you've got people and money piling in because it's been affordable, because it's easy to get to, because of all of the amenities that are close in. Does this become now, all of a sudden, maybe the dark side of growth?
I think that there's certain areas that may be a factor. I think the cost of living in Charlotte, is it higher than the national average? Possibly. I think it might be, but I never thought I'd see that.
Got to be close.
Yeah, but it's an opportunity for our rural areas. Once again, I keep going back to these places where there's plenty of land. There's folks that want the business there. Cost of living still way down there, and we're to a point now with our infrastructure where you can get to a major metro area if you need to, a lot quicker than you used to be able to.
What about the upstate?
Well, people follow jobs and affordability, period. And it's why we are the 10th fastest growing county in the United States of America. 29 people a day are moving to Spartanburg County. And so what's an asset now? I think that's a great question. Could be a liability in the future. We are seeing more proactive policy around affordable housing. I think that's critically important. But we're also in a position too where we can prioritize quality over quantity. We're not incentivizing companies anymore that don't pay competitive wages, and that's incredibly important.
We've got about a minute and a half left. I want to talk about manufacturing because a lot of these projects are manufacturing based or making something at these plants. Ben, what's the state of manufacturing in North Carolina?
Great timing because we have that in our next issue as well.
I promise that wasn't a tee up for you.
I love it. Manufacturing is a little bit uncertain now. The tariffs are still kind of an uncertainty. Some people don't see it as a big deal.
Does that have a long tail on it, that uncertainty, you think?
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. We're in uncertain times from that standpoint, and I think that's the given right now.
Yeah.
As well. But also AI is a big thing. The workforce, of course, is always going to be on people's minds in terms of finding qualified workers to fill those jobs.
Heavy manufacturing in the upstate. What is the state of manufacturing? Red, yellow, green? How would you describe it?
If we could blend some of those colors. Again, uncertainty in the answer as well. But, you know, Mr. Navarro a few months ago made a comment about BMW plant Spartanburg and Mercedes-Benz and how these assembly plants don't really work for the United States and don't work in our best interest. And we really hit back hard on that. 43,000 direct jobs are derived from BMW plant Spartanburg. These are good, as we talked about, high-paying jobs. So manufacturing is incredibly important, makes up a majority of our job composition in the upstate. And so I'm still bullish on manufacturing, although there's some headwinds. I would rather be more concentrated in that sector than some others at this point.
Not to put you on the spot, Alan, but since you're sitting here, and this is an easy question to ask, Scott Keogh from Scout Motors was on this program, and I had asked him if he thought that the Scout Motors flag in the ground manufacturing facility in Blythewood, just north of Columbia, could be a lot like what BMW did all those years ago with Carroll Campbell after the announcement. He sounded pretty bullish that it could be at least that. Would you agree with that?
Well, our local officials have been in touch with the local officials there. We've been exchanging some stories as to how how our community has evolved in the 30 years that BMW has been there. And so they're thinking the right things. They're being proactive, but absolutely, I think it could have the same impact.
Wow. Okay, guys, thank you. We're going to bring our guest on in just a moment. Before we do that, in the summer, we like to carve out some of the best dialogues that we've had over the past several months. They're called Carolina Classic Conversations, and they are the best of the best. We're going to be doing that in the next few weeks. Hope you'll make time to watch that. And also, he is the president of the 9th District of the Federal Reserve. Tom Barkin will be back on this program as well. Hope you enjoy and tune in for that. Don't let the boyish good looks of our guest fool you. He has a storied background in finance, and he knows his way around a balance sheet, income statement, and more complicated and structured vehicles of finance. He will probably need every bit of that experience, as he is now treasurer of the state of North Carolina and responsible not just for prudently overseeing one of the nation's largest retirement funds at $127 billion and growing, but also the equitable balance and the stewardship of the Tar Heel State's health care plan that covers 750,000 or so teachers, state employees, retirees, and their dependents. We welcome now North Carolina State Treasurer Brad Briner. Mr. Treasurer, welcome to the program.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We didn't mention, we're going to talk about North Carolina things in just a second, Your Honor, but this idea that a few weeks ago, Moody's, which was one of the 3 large investor services, dropped their credit rating for United States debt from AAA down to AA minus. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but if that happened in North Carolina, that would dramatically increase borrowing costs, among other things. How much of a watershed moment is that for the U.S. debt?
Unfortunately, not much of one. So Moody's was the 3rd of the 3 rating agencies to do that. The first one occurred over a decade ago at this point. That was a watershed moment. It was the first time that I think people woke up and said, well, gee, maybe we can't print forever. So Moody's, being the 3rd out of 3, was kind of shrugged off by the bond market as a result, saying, well, kind of knew that was coming. I'm surprised it took them so long. I think we all understand, though, the state of federal finances is not great, and we really need to have a better path forward. I really hope that they can figure that out, but I'm not all that optimistic.
Do you think there is some tipping point in the near term for the cost of that debt in the United States, given the debt level in the U.S.?
You know, in financial markets, everything is relative. And I think that's an important concept that gets lost in this discussion. Yeah, $37 trillion of debt is an enormous amount of money that maybe we'll never pay back. But in the end, the global financial system rests on a single risk-free liquid asset. And that's the U.S. Treasury market, the U.S. dollar. And until you can have something that can obviously replace that, I don't think we have that much to worry about. I still wish we were on a better trajectory, but I'm not jumping out the window quite yet.
Okay. Ben, question?
Brad, I'm calling him Brad.
Please. Yeah.
We talked a lot back in the green room, which was great and such. But we've been doing interviews with you since you took office. Tell us a little bit, and I know you've got a real passion for financial literacy, which is extremely important. Tell us a little bit about why that is important and what you're doing.
Yeah, so for me, it's personal. It kind of goes back to when I was a little kid and my dad lost his job, and that was the waning days of the Carter administration, so we're going to blame that party, though that recession was probably equally shared. And I was young, I didn't really understand what was happening, but I knew my parents were fighting, and I didn't like that. And over the years, you figure out what's happening in your house and why it happens, and financial literacy was a big part of that. It's just understanding how it all works and why it all works. I have a number of friends who are otherwise very successful and get in their own way with financial literacy, basic concepts that you would think that they'd understand by now. And so for me, it's been a personal passion to try to make sure everyone is educated and really is able to live the life that they want to live and not get in their own way financially.
Do you think technology has a positive or negative factor on it?
Probably a little bit of both. We were talking about this a little earlier. I've got a bunch of teenagers in my house, and the first time one of them...
They related to you, or you just end up with...
My wife tells me they are. I think they are. But the first time that one of them brought up TikTok finance, I was a little bit disturbed. It's TikTok, after all. But at the same time, it was finance. So, I'm a little bit of both minds about it. Not all knowledge is good knowledge, but I think any financial literacy knowledge is pretty good knowledge.
No. So I was reading, you're making some comments about the investment strategy being 50-50, and you wanted to see a 70-30 stock bond ratio. Does crypto have, any role in and not even necessarily for South Carolina, but in governmental investment strategy?
Yeah. Eventually, I think the answer is yes, but maybe at the immediate moment, the jury's out. There are a lot of pieces to crypto, but let's go back to investment strategy first. We've had a constitutionally limited ability to take risk, and I mean that in lowercase c, not uppercase c.
You mean in the state?
Yes, in the state of North Carolina, and that has cost us a lot. We've got a $16 billion pension deficit, and it's frankly because we have chosen to have that by having cash and treasury bonds instead of equities over decades now. So we've got to evolve that. To what is a great question as it relates to crypto. I think there's a lot of interesting innovation there. I'm a personal investor in Bitcoin, but it is a very high risk, high return investment over time. And as a state, we actually just need to make 6.5%. If we can do that consistently, that's the right answer for our retirees. It's the right answer for our taxpayers. And so I'm not quite sure that crypto and that goal are a great match at the moment, but I think you fast forward 5 to 10 years, and this will evolve. It will probably evolve to the lower risk, lower return category in the fullness of time. Bitcoin's already $1.7 trillion. Right. And so I think I hear a lot of people out there thinking that this is a fad and it's going to go away. And certainly there are some digital assets that's true of, but Bitcoin's not one of them.
The Fed argues, when I ask central bankers about the idea of cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, they just look at me with a blank stare and say, well, what do you need that for? We already have cryptocurrency, PayPal. Sure. Take your pick. So if U.S., not to mention other central banks, if they don't endorse it somehow, doesn't it keep it kind of out in the wilderness?
I think it would require regulation to stand in its way, not an endorsement per se that would matter. So you've seen this in a number of countries where they banned cryptocurrencies. Mm-hmm. We have not, will not be that country. I think the real question around crypto goes back to its genesis. The point is that you have no central authority who can ruin it. People, I think rightly in many cases, feel like the federal government's finances are ruining the dollar. And you can't do that with Bitcoin. So that's the appeal fundamentally for folks is it's peer-to-peer, it's trustless, and I don't have a central government who can debase its value by printing it.
And going back to the growth of the investment plan, and also bringing the healthcare plan, you got to have $500 million in debt, as you said that you had inherited day one in office. So between that and the growth of the investment plan, when you have more people taking retirement benefits that are paying into it now, is just growing revenue and growing the size of the corpus of the investment portfolio going to cover that?
It is. We run elaborate models looking at a lot of things, and we'll do one of those this fall. It's called an experience study. So we look at every assumption that goes into these pension systems. The idea that more people are taking out than are going in is not a new one or a surprise. Mm-hmm. We expected that. Yeah. What we expected, though, that hasn't come true is making 6.5%. We've been making 5.2%, and it's that 1.3% that's led to our problem. We've got a $16 billion hole to fill in the pension system. And if we can make that 1.3%, that hole will get taken care of, and we'll be able to get back in the position of giving cost of living adjustments to our retirees. That's the hardest call I get by far as treasurer, from a retiree who says, I haven't gotten a cost of living adjustment in a decade. I'm having trouble affording my bills. Whose fault is it? The answer is it's the treasurer's office's fault. The legislature's done its share. They've sacrificed by not getting a COLA. It's on us, and we got to fix that.
Okay. All right. So 25 years prior to you taking this position was private sector.
Yeah.
What is, and you've thrown into state treasurer. How is that? Tell us a little bit about that change, and has it been a big change?
Not as big as you might think. In the end, this is an investment job. By and large, I spend my days thinking about the investments of the state, either the long-term ones in the pension system or cash, or investing in people's health through the healthcare system. And that language, that familiarity is deep in my background. There's some political nuances that you got to manage, and those are new and frankly small. Because in the end, numbers are numbers. And I got a $16 billion deficit. I make 5.2%. We can try to caveat those things all we want, but they're on our website. They are what they are. We hopefully will do better.
Alan? I didn't know we were going to be talking about baseball, but I threw you a curveball with crypto, so let me give you a softball now, and that is, you said the target's 6.5. How do you get there?
What's funny about it is that that's easier than it's been in about 20 years in terms of the amount of risk you have to take to get there, and that's just base interest rates. So if you go get a mortgage on your house today, you're paying about 7%. Well, someone's making 7%. That should be us. So we're not talking about getting into the real speculative ends of the capital markets. We're going to do a lot more in credit. We had a statutory prohibition until a couple weeks ago on how much of that we could do, but it's pretty low risk stuff. It's not that exciting, but it really delivers on what we're trying to do, and that's just make 6.5 at as low risk as possible. So you'll see us in places like that much more than we've ever been.
You're going to get the backing of the General Assembly to make that? You think the House and the Senate are both going to say, go get them, Brad?
Not only will we have, so our bill that reforms fundamentally how we make investments was passed unanimously by the House, unanimously by the Senate, and signed by the governor. And so we're off to the races and rebuilding the entire way we do investing in the state.
And what does that look like, without too much detail, obviously?
Sure. So historically, it's been the treasurer who can kind of do whatever they want within some statutory limitations. Going forward, once we have it in place, we'll have a 5-member board appointed by the treasurer, the governor, the speaker, the president pro tem, and then the treasurer ex officio to make those decisions. They'll hire and fire a chief investment officer of that pension organization. The truth is, what we've built looks like most every other state who does this well. I think South Carolina does it in a really good way, and we learned a lot from them. Virginia, Florida, Texas, pick your favorite state. And the model coalesces around this. We just had a model that was about 100 years old, and we needed an update.
You've got, and I hate to keep asking these questions, but I think these are kind of key. So, as Ben said, about 25 years ago, you were private sector, running a private family office for one of the richest individuals in the country. But the idea of valuations, capital market valuations, does that worry about you now?
Of course.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir, but how do you deploy the allocation with 127 plus billion and not worry about valuations and volatility?
Oh, you do. And by the way, it's 132 billion now. Okay. So we've had a good year. And we pay out a couple of billion. So we've made a real amount of money so far, and credit to my team for doing that. We have a lot of degrees of freedom. So we don't have to go chase the equity market. And in fact, we've been selling equities the last several weeks. We've been buying more mortgage and other spread product where there's excess return available relative to a really low risk security. So we have done a lot of movement in the portfolio, but it's not just taking more risk. It's hopefully just getting more return for similar risk. I am skeptical of where we are in U.S. equity valuations. I think it sounds like, as you are, that doesn't mean they're not spots you can pick, but we don't have to lean into the whole market right now because there are other places to deploy that meet our return objections.
We have about a minute left. Do you have a quick one?
Yeah, a real quick one. It's a softball you wouldn't believe. Summertime, what's your favorite North Carolina vacation spot?
Favorite North Carolina vacation spot is the mountains. My wife's from Asheville, and so we spent a lot of time up there over the years. And we don't get back as often as we want to, but chasing 4 kids around the state who are all doing different things. But hopefully we'll get up there this summer and enjoy a bit of a cooler weather, given that it's 90-something today.
You know, as a quick one, since you know Western North Carolina so well, does the office have any interest in helping rebuild? Is there a specific, and we've got about 30 seconds.
So we were asked to help with administering a loan program for all the counties and municipalities. We do local government finance already through the Local Government Commission, so we're deeply familiar with all the municipalities. And we're given that program in mid-December, and we've fully deployed that program in 6 months. Okay. We'll see if we get more, but we're happy to do that and excited to have played a small role in helping to rebuild the West.
Your Honor, thank you. I mean, this is a lot of information, 10 pounds of information in a 5-pound bag. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Please come back.
Appreciate it.
Good to see you. Ben, good to have you on the program. Come back. It's been too long. Good to have you here. We'll call you, I
Absolutely.
promise. Alan, thanks for making the trip. I know 85 between Spartanburg. It's always painful, but thank you.
We're working it out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Until next week, I'm Chris William. Happy weekend. Happy summer. Good night.
Gratefully acknowledging support by Martin Marietta, Truliant Federal Credit Union, Foundation for the Carolinas, Sunoco, Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina, High Point University, and by viewers like you. Thank you.